Hi everyone, I'm Jacob Fair with the Grand Prairie Public Library, and I'm here to do another painting instructional video. Now, I've done the Video Game Masterpiece series in the past where we've painted video game inspired paintings, but last year on May 4th, I decided to do a Star Wars inspired one. And I decided to do the painting of one of the most iconic scenes in the entire Star Wars series. Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi, you're my only hope. And that's what we're going to be painting today. Now, to do this painting, you'll need a few things. A canvas. I'm using an 11 by 14 canvas, but you can use what size you have to some extent. A couple brushes, some acrylic paint. I've got about a half dozen colors here, but you can certainly make do with less. And you'll need the stencils. Now, I've provided the stencils in two forms on the children's activity page on our website. The first is a set of PDF files that you can download and print and cut out the stencils yourself. The other way I've provided them is through some PNG images that can be used with a Cricut device to cut out stencils using that. Now, please note, I provide the images to be used with Cricut devices on an as-is basis. Neither I nor anyone else at the Grand Prairie Public Library can provide technical support for using them with your Cricut device. But if you have one of those devices and you'd like to give them a try, please do. They'll certainly save you a lot of cutting. So with that, let's get started with this painting. And I'm going to start with some blue paint to paint the background of the hologram. Now, for my purposes, I would like a slightly lighter blue paint, and I'm going to be using a turquoise blue in this case. So I'll dab some onto my very high quality palette. And I'm going to paint just a rough oval-shaped blob over on this side of the canvas. That'll be the only part that's visible in the end once we cover the rest of the canvas with black paint. So it's not essential to spread this blue paint out too far. And as in my other videos, I'm going to use small crisscross strokes to give the painting a little bit of extra texture. I'm also going to paint the edge of the canvas so things look a little more finished at the end, regardless of whether I choose to frame the painting or not, which I won't. Okay, that should be far enough to set things up for the next step of our painting. I'm going to let it dry and wash my brush, and we'll continue from there. Alright, now that my blue paint is dried, I'm ready to move on to the next step. Now, unlike some of the other paintings I've done in the past, this one uses stencils very, very early on. And I'm going to be using two stencils momentarily to fill in the outline of R2-D2's base shape and for the head and one of the hands for Princess Leia in the hologram. Now, when you're using these stencils, you have to make absolutely sure the existing paint on the canvas is dry. Otherwise, the stencils will stick very, very badly to the existing paint, and when you pull them away, you'll have ragged edges and splotches of paint and possibly pull some of the old paint away from the canvas. So make sure the paint is nice and dry, and then work with the stencils. Now, I've also pre-mixed the next colors I'll need, because I'll need a nice light gray for R2-D2, and a sort of peachy pink for Leia's hands and face. So I'll start with the R2-D2 stencil. And place it there. When you're doing this at home, it's much, much easier to apply stencils with your canvas lying flat on the table. But to make it more visible, I'm going to keep it on the easel here. And painting from the edge towards the center, I'm going to use a large brush to apply the gray paint with the stencil. There, that's the base for R2-D2, and I'm going to wash my brush quickly, and I'll use the first stencil for Leia. Okay, that's not quite as opaque as I'd like on top of that blue paint, so I'm going to let this layer dry briefly, and then I'll go over the stencil once more very, very quickly in just a moment. Okay, that should do the trick. And so I'm going to wash my brush, let these two new sections of paint dry thoroughly, and then I'll continue on with the painting in a few minutes. Okay, now that that layer of paint is dried, I'm ready for the next stencils. And I'm going to be painting with two of them. I've already got my paint ready for it. I'm going to be using a darker blue on a stencil to paint the details on R2-D2, and I'm going to be using another stencil in white to paint Leia's robe, the outline of it at any rate. We're not going to get into a lot of detail in this painting. It'll be recognizable at the end as something from Star Wars without the fine details. So first up, the R2-D2 stencil, facing the right way, of course. And I'm going to have to trim the bottom. I made a mistake and left too much space on the bottom for it to line up properly. That's better, and now I'll apply some blue paint to it. And there are the details for R2-D2. And now Leia's robe. Now the Leia's robe stencil will overlap her head and the hand to some extent. The idea is that that's her hand that's furthest away from us when we're viewing things, and it's obscured a tiny bit by her robe and the fact that we're seeing her profile. And that should be okay. So I'm going to let this dry, wash my brush, and I'll get ready for the next step momentarily. Okay, now that that latest section of paint is dried, it's time to do something with this painting that I try to avoid whenever possible. It's time to do some freehanding with a small brush. We need a few details that it wasn't practical for me to do a stencil for various reasons, and they're pretty small components of the painting, so doing it freehand on this particular occasion is okay. So I've got some paint ready for it, and we need a few different things. And again, I'm using my small brush here. For one, Leia needs another hand, so we need just a little blob of paint to sort of indicate her other front hand when she's standing profile. There, that'll be just fine. We need a dab of red for one of R2-D2's sensor eyes down here. And I'll give this brush a quick wash. And R2-D2 needs another dab, but this time of black for a top sensor eye. And then Leia needs some hair on the top of her head and enough of a swirl on the side to indicate her Danish hairdo from the original Star Wars film. And I'm running into an issue I've run into with this brown paint before that's not as opaque as I'd like, so I'm going to add a little bit of black to it. Okay, that's a little better. And with that, I'm going to let the painting dry again, and then we'll do the final step. Okay, it's time to do the last step of our painting. I have a couple protective stencils to keep R2-D2, the hologram beam, and Leia covered, and we'll cover the rest of the painting in black paint to make the rest of this stand out. So I'm going to lay the protective stencils on them, paint from the stencil out. When I've got the stencils outlined, I'll pull them away and then just fill in the rest of the painting with black paint. And there we go. The Star Wars masterpiece is done. Thanks for joining me for this painting, folks. If you'd like to keep an eye on other things we're trying to do to keep people occupied right now, please keep an eye on the Grand Prairie Public Library's Facebook page. That's where we'll post links to various things, like this video, like any other painting videos I may do, and other activities we're running. And regardless of what your faith is right now, folks, during these tough times, may the Force be with you.